The TTArtisan 35mm f1.4 and 50mm f1.2 lens have a lot of similarities, but they are also very different in some ways. If you are considering which one to buy, this is the video for you. Let's start with the most basic information. In terms of size, they are both very compact lenses. The 35mm weighs 180 grams and the 50mm weighs 330 grams. They are both made of metal, they feel very well built, and they both have a screw-on lens cap. In terms of sharpness, I think the 35mm is sharper than the 50mm, especially when you shoot wide open. The 50mm give you a softer look, but for portrait, I think it's acceptable. I think they are both pretty sharp at f4. They both suffer from some chromatic aberration, so basically when you take a photo facing the sun, there will be some purple or pink fringing, but it's easy to deal with during post-editing. These lenses have outstanding low light performance. The 50mm has f1.2 and the 35mm has f1.4. I think there isn't a large difference between f1.2 and f1.4, so this shouldn't be a concern. This is an important factor. I first got the 50mm lens, and simply because I love the color, the tone, the texture, just everything that gives this lens such a strong character. So I decided to also try the 35mm lens of the same brand. But the 35mm is not very obvious. I think there's nothing wrong with it, it just looks more neutral. I'm not sure if it is because there's some special coating on the 50mm lens or what, but the tone gives off a very nostalgic vibe. So you can easily think that the photos were taken with a vintage lens, while actually this lens was released only a couple of years ago. Focal length is also a very important factor. The 50mm lens can give you a more narrow field of view, while the 35mm can give you a more natural or normal view. So it really depends on what you want to achieve. If you want to take portrait photos, then the 50mm can give you more blurry background and larger bokeh balls. But if you are a more hybrid photographer, or you haven't found your main focus, then I think 35mm will be more versatile. These are both manual lenses, so there is no autofocus at all. You might only want to use them in a controlled environment. You can use these lenses for product, for flowers, food, and portrait. Sometimes I also like to use these lenses for street photography. It's definitely not as convenient as using an autofocus lens, but I think it's quite fun to use. I think the 35mm is easier to use in every way. First, because the 35mm focal length is easier for composition. Second, also because of the focal length, the shaking of your hand won't be as obvious, so it is easier to focus. When comparing these two lenses, you also have to think about how much space you have. For example, sometimes when I was taking food photos in a crowded restaurant, the 50mm won't be suitable, not only because of the longer focal length, but also because this lens has a longer minimum focus distance. So even though the final result looks pretty good, it is just easier to use a 35mm lens in a tiny space. On the day I make this video, which is July the 5th, 2022, these lenses cost $112 and $83 respectively. They are both a lot cheaper than similar lenses from other companies, so they may not be the best lenses, but definitely the best deal you can find. If you still can't decide which one is more suitable for you, I think these are the major factors that worth considering: character, focal length, space, user-friendliness. If you want more vintage effect, buy the 50mm. If you mainly take portrait photos, buy the 50mm. If you usually take photos in small indoor space, buy the 35mm. If you are new to manual lenses, you just want to give it a try and see whether you like it or not, buy the 35mm. If you ask me personally, I like the 50mm over the 35 because, like I said, I love the nostalgic tone and I also like the effect of a longer focal length. But I have to admit, if you look at the photos objectively, I think the 35mm has a better optical performance. Alright, if you still have questions about these two lenses, feel free to leave a comment. And if you want to know more about these two lenses, I have separate videos for the lens review. Make sure you watch them before making your decision. I also have the product links in the description box below. Thanks for watching. If you like my videos, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. I'll see you next time.